Greetings, Lumen students. It's your Wednesday video for week 9. We're going to start with our preposition activity first. You're getting so good at identifying these. I have another picture book for you if you want to grab a piece of paper. This time I'm going to have you write some sentences yourself. So last time you had to find 10 prepositional phrases that were in the gingerbread baby. This time I want you to write 10 sentences with prepositions for our book, My Friend Rabbit. Okay? So if you could grab a piece of paper and a pencil and then come back to this video, let's see if we can identify 10, we can find 10 sentences or write 10 sentences with prepositions, and I'll help you with these first couple. Okay? My friend Rabbit means, well, but whatever he does, wherever he goes, trouble follows. He's thrown the airplane, and where is it? Okay, there aren't any words to describe what's happened, but we can see it. Okay, how could you write that with a prepositional phrase? The airplane is stuck in the tree, between the branches. Okay. Up in the air. I don't know. Okay. So the airplane is caught in the tree. And in the tree will be our prepositional phrase. Okay, that's pretty easy. We can do that. Keep on going. There's poor mouse. You can write a prepositional phrase for that page if you want to, students. Mouse gazes sadly in the air at his plane. Okay. Whatever you want to say. Not to worry, Mouse. I've got an idea. Okay. What on earth is Rabbit doing? How would you describe this scene with a prepositional phrase? Okay. So he's pulling, we could say, in front of we'll keep reading. I can't find any good ones. Okay. He's pulling over the elephant's tail. He's pulling over the elephant. Where's the mouse? And the mouse is perched on the elephant's knee. I don't know if you knew this, but elephants are really scared of mice. I think it's because they're worried that mice might climb up their trunk, which, can you imagine? Well, horrible. Now what's going on? Rabbit is pushing from behind while Mouse pulls from on top. I don't know if he's scratching, giving the rhino a massage. I'm not exactly sure because the mouse is not going to be doing too much from up there. But you can use a prepositional phrase to describe his position in their relationship. Now what? The rhino is on top of the elephant. That was quite a feat. How about this one? Write a prepositional phrase, a sentence with a prepositional with phrase. The rabbit carries the hippopotamus over his head. I mean, even just describing it just sounds ridiculous if you didn't see the picture. And there's more. If you're struggling to write as fast as I'm moving through this book, I apologize. Feel free to pause the video so you can take a better look at each of these. Again, you could write a sentence for each of them. This is one strong rabbit. I don't know what he eats, but man. Here's some more relationships. The mouse is found, could we say, between, among, the ducklings all in a row. And the mother duck is being carried above the bunny's head. Here we got quite a big pile up. But the airplane was still just out of reach. Rabbit said, "Not to worry, Mouse. I have got an idea." So Rabbit held Squirrel and Squirrel held me. But then... can you get any prepositional phrases? Okay, so the plane was just beyond their reach. And then the squirrel starts to fall below the mouse to the ground. Ah, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And the ducklings run around on the grass, while meanwhile the pileup is now coming crashing down to earth. The bear lands barely near the ducklings. Can you see them? That rhino's hoof is headed straight for the ducklings' heads. You could throw in a lot of good prepositional phrases. Here's some more. Ooh, those antlers are pretty close to stabbing into the hippopotamus's belly. He appears to be laughing. Maybe it's just tickling him. Nobody seems too happy except for the hippo. Hippo seems to be enjoying himself. The hippo is laying on his back on the ground. The animals were not happy. Whoa, make a run for it. But Rabbit means well. He is making a getaway, and guess who helps him? Mouse rescues him. He is my friend. Even if, whatever he does. Thank you, Mouse. Rabbit, stop hugging me. Wherever he goes, I can't see. Trouble follows. Not to worry, Mouse. I have got an idea. Here we go. Caught in the tree again. You can describe any more of those pages with some prepositional phrases. Okay. They sailed across the sky above the other animals, okay, beyond the reach of the very angry rhinoceros, towards the tree where they are caught again. Okay, good job with this prepositional phrase activity. Students, I hope you're feeling more comfortable and confident in finding prepositions. I think that you are. Let's do, you got your paper out, a riddle game. I have 10 riddles for you. So if you would number from 1 to 10. Each riddle this time includes a different spelling word. So you've got to just figure out which of these words meets my clue. And I'll have to tell you that I just have used one of the homonym pairs or triplets. So if I've used one of them, then I'm not going to use another one. Okay. So number 1. Salt Lake City is to Utah as Augusta is to blank. Number 2. We're going to learn about Julius Caesar today. This is what Julius Caesar wanted to do. This is what Julius Caesar wanted to do. Number 3. Bowline, cow hitch. That's your clue. Bowline, cow hitch. Number 4, at the hospital, they will ask you to rank this on a scale from 1 to 10. Rank this on a scale from 1 to 10. Number 5, I'm going to read a little bit more about Eden and his search. And he relied on this blank. Okay, when he remembered, seek and ye shall find. Okay. Relied on these blank when he remembered, seek and ye shall find. Number 6. This is an old phrase that people used to say back in the day. Blank not, want not. Blank not, want not. Number 7, sometimes graduates will get this made of money instead of a more traditional something. Sometimes graduates will get this, but it's made of money instead of the more traditional natural items. These riddles are kind of hard, but I hope, I'm hoping you're being challenged by them. I don't want this to be too easy. Number 8, there is a book, and I promise you, that is called Blank Up This Book, which just seems crazy to me because you've spent money on it, so why would you do that? Blank up this book. And number 9, okay. My favorite blank in Frozen is when Olaf sings about summer. My favorite blank in Frozen is when Olaf sings about summer. And number 10, your clue is pow pow. Do you want to hear those again super quickly? Okay. Number 1, Salt Lake City is to Utah as Augusta is to blank. Number 2, this is what Julius Caesar really, really wanted. Number 3, a bowline and a cow hitch. Number 10, number 4, what am I talking about? 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, at the hospital, you're asked to rate this on a scale from 1 to 10. Number 5, Eden relied on these blank when he remembered, seek and ye shall find. Number 6, blank not, want not. Number 7, sometimes graduates will receive this made of money instead of more natural items. Number 8, blank up this book. Number 9, my favorite blank in Frozen is when Olaf sings. And number 10, pow pow. All right, are you ready for correcting? Number 1 is Maine. M-A-I-N-E, Augusta, Maine. And you need to spell them correctly to get them right. Julius Caesar wanted to reign, R-E-I-G-N. Number 3, bowlines and cow hitches are types of knots, K-N-O-T. Number 4, the hospital will ask you to rank your pain, P-A-I-N. And number 5, Eden remembered these verses, V-E-R-S-E-S, scripture verses. Number 6, waste not, W-A-S-T-E, want not. Number 7, graduates will get a lei, L-E-I, made of money instead of with flowers. Number 8, tear up this book, T-E-A-R. Number 9, scene. My favorite scene is when Olaf sings, S-C-E-N-E. And number 10, pow pow, it's the sound a gun makes, not very accurate. But it's an ordnance, a weapon, O-R-D-N-A-N-C-E, ordnance. All right, let me tell you a funny story about Julius Caesar, since we introduced him today. This is about when Julius Caesar got kidnapped. And he was a young man at this time, and a very cocky one at that, okay? One day, a baby boy was born to a rich family in Rome. His parents named him Julius Caesar. The Caesars were pretty important people. They claimed to be descended from Romulus, the founder of Rome. Julius's father was a rich nobleman who helped to make the laws, and Julius's uncle was actually a consul, one of the 2 great rulers of Rome. My little boy is going to accomplish great things, Julius's father declared. He will become one of the most famous men in Rome. As soon as Julius was old enough, his father sent him to school so he could learn everything, but the most important thing that he learned was rhetoric, which was the art of speaking in public. Julius Caesar was very good at speaking in public. He grew up to be tall, strong, black eyes, dark hair. He had a deep, powerful voice. Whenever he made a speech, crowds would gather to listen to him. He became more and more popular, but he decided he needed even more lessons on rhetoric so that he could get even more people to support him. So the most famous teacher of rhetoric or public speaking lived on an island in the Mediterranean Sea. And so Julius decides, I've got to go over there and learn how to do this really, really well. So he goes to hire a boat, and the captain of the boat says, it's going to cost you double. I don't want to go out there. There are pirates on the Mediterranean Sea. Their boats are faster than mine is, and they kidnap wealthy people for ransom, and they take cargo. I just don't want to do it. I don't think you should do it. You don't want to go. Julius says, I'm going. I don't care. So he pays double, and they take off. And no sooner had they left the side of land than here come the pirates. Sure enough, they aborted the ship, stole the cargo, and then they see Julius Caesar, who was standing calmly in the middle of all the captured sailors. They could tell by his clothes that he was very wealthy, so they thought, this is a good plan for us. We're going to keep you for ransom, the pirate captain said. Who are your relatives? We'll tell them that we'll send you back as soon as they pay us $100,000. Of course, that wasn't the currency that they used back then, but we're just, extrapolating, converting the currency to know how much they were asking for. But Julius Caesar burst out laughing. That's it? I'm worth at least $250,000. Oh, you think you're so important, the pirate said. Very well, we'll keep you and see how much money we can make from you. I am warning you, Caesar said. As soon as I'm free, I'm going to return and execute you all. The pirates laughed. They did not take Caesar seriously. They took him back to their ship and kept him for more than a month. Caesar treated them like they were the prisoners. Savages, he would call out. Be quiet, I'm trying to take a nap. Be sure that the food you serve me tonight is better than what I had for lunch. The pirates seriously thought Caesar was so funny, and they just didn't kill him because they were so entertained. Finally, the government of Rome sent Caesar's ransom, and they took the money and told Caesar goodbye. Go back to Rome, little boy, they mocked him. Go back to where it's safe. The sea belongs to us. Well, as soon as Caesar gets back to Rome, he convinces the Roman Navy to lend him 3 warships and several troops of soldiers. He sails back out onto the Mediterranean Sea. Sure enough, as soon as the warships lose sight of land, the pirates appeared sailing up fast behind them. This time Caesar was ready. He turned his ships immediately about. They didn't try to race away from the pirates because they knew they couldn't do that. They weren't fast enough. And they got ready to fight. He circled his warships and met the pirates head on. Climbing from one ship to another, the soldiers fought hand to hand with the pirates until finally the pirates were defeated. Now, who does the sea belong to? Caesar said to the pirate captain. He took the pirates back to Rome and had them all executed. After this, everyone in Rome knew who Caesar was. They knew that he was a strong leader, that he was a fierce fighter, that you shouldn't cross him probably. Julius Caesar's name was on everyone's lips, and the people of Rome were ready to vote for Caesar. Okay. I thought you would enjoy that story, a little history for you. Let's see how Eben does in finding the first wonder of Sassafras Springs. Jeb had 4 younger sisters and 4 younger brothers. The babies were inside with their ma and the oldest girl, Maggie, but the rest of them hung all over Jeb as usual. You hardly ever saw him without a brother clinging to his leg, a sister riding piggyback, and another one tugging at his back pocket. Fortunately, Jeb was good-natured. Hey, you want to come searching with me? I asked him. Looking for trouble? I already got some here, said Jeb, ruffling Flo's hair. Hi, Eben, she said with a giggle. You got any candy? Before I could answer, Charlie lunged for Sal, yelling, Doggy! Sal escaped his grasp in the nick of time. Don't get me wrong, I like Jeb's brothers and sisters. But whenever I tried to tell Jeb he was lucky, he'd say, take as many of them as you want. I was hoping you and me could go searching for wonders, like the 7 wonders of the world, you remember? In geography? Jeb grabbed Fred's overalls just in time. to keep him from mowing down a tomato plant. "There's no wonders around here," he said. "You got your work cut out for you." "If I can find 7 wonders in Sassafras Springs, I'll get to go to Colorado on a train." Jeb let out a low whistle. "By yourself?" I nodded, just as Bessie burst into tears because Joey was dangling a fat worm in her face. "Maybe tomorrow," said Jeb, picking up Bessie. "I kind of have my hands full today." I trudged back toward the road with Sal at my heels. "Looks like we're on our own," I told her. She wagged her tail, grateful-like. We took the side road off Yellow Dog and headed up the hills, past fields tall with corn, aiming toward the farthest side of the ridge. "I guess this is the beginning, girl," I told Sal. While the two of us walked and climbed and searched and explored, we didn't see anything out of the ordinary. At this rate, at the end of 7 days, I'd have an empty tablet and a dog full of cockleburs. I sat down and tried to pick the ornery stickers out of Sal's fur, and she licked my hand in thanks. "Well, girl, I guess we better keep on looking." Then I remembered part of a verse I'd heard last week in Sunday school. "He that seeketh findeth." Well, that sounded encouraging, and I recalled another part of the chapter said, "Ask, and it shall be given you." Maybe finding wonders would require some asking, though speaking up did not come naturally to me, as Aunt Pretty liked to point out. I craned my neck and glimpsed the very top of Redhead Hill, trying to imagine how much higher Silver Peak Mountain would be. "Come on, girl," I told Sal. "Let's go and seek and find some wonders." The farthest farmhouse belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Orville Payne. Once a month or so, I saw Mrs. Alameda Payne in our parlor, along with half a dozen other ladies from the church sewing circle. How their needles kept up with their tongues was a mystery to me. But I thought I'd call on Mrs. Payne and see if she had anything astonishing to show me. There were 2 windows on the front of the Payne house, one on each side of the door. With the shades pulled halfway down, they looked like a pair of sleepy eyes. I took a deep breath and knocked. It was dead quiet inside. I thought Mrs. Payne might be out back, and I went in to check. As I rounded the side of the house, I practically ran smack into Mr. Payne, and he wasn't pleased to see me. Neither was his huge dog, who bared his yellow teeth at Sal. She stood her ground, but kept quiet, as the Payne dog was double her size. Sal was brave. She wasn't stupid. Orville Payne was a tall man, so tall that when I looked up at him, I could see clear inside his nostrils. They were flaring like a bull's. "What are you doing here?" he asked in a gravelly voice. I'm just looking for Mrs. Payne. It's me, Eben McAllister." He frowned and blew his red nose on a ragged bandana. "Why ain't you home with your pa?" "Oh, well, sir, I'm looking around Sassafras Springs for a wonder, like a wonder of the world." Mr. Payne spit on the ground. "More like you're nosing around to see if anybody has anything worth stealing. Now you get out of here and stay out. I don't want boys like you snooping around my house. Go on now." He didn't have to tell me twice. As Sal and I hightailed it out of there, my heart was leaping around in my chest. Folks in Sassafras Springs were usually friendly enough, but they expected their neighbors to mind their own business, which did not include asking about wonders. When we were out of Orville Payne's side, I decided to catch my breath. I was ready to give up and go home. I decided I'd try keeping my eyes open for wonders while keeping my mouth shut. On the way back down the hill, I rounded a bend and saw somebody waving at me, friendly-like, and I waved back. When Sal and I got closer, I saw that the arm was really the sleeve of a dress hanging on a wash line, along with shirts and unmentionables, as Aunt Pretty called underwear. They were outside the house where Mrs. Pritchard, my Sunday school teacher, lived. Just then, Mrs. Pritchard herself stepped out from behind the wash and waved. She was small and round face, round curls, big round flowers on her dress. "Neat as a pin," Aunt Pretty would say. "Is that you, Eben?" she called. Sal raised a head, but I was in no hurry. The house was so small, I don't know how the Pritchards raised a family in it. Aunt Pretty said Mrs. Pritchard had no business putting on airs and graces when her house was no better than anybody else's. Not that anyone would know, since it was about as hard to get invited into the Pritchards' house as to be admitted through the pearly gates of heaven. I didn't exactly expect to find a statue of Zeus hiding behind the picket fence. "Howdy," I said when I finally reached the wash line, feeling kind of shy. It didn't seem right to be standing next to my Sunday school teacher's bloomers. I asked how Pa was and how Aunt Pretty was, and She asked how Pa was and how Aunt Pretty was and how I was, all the while pulling down sun-dried pillowcases and folding them. "We're all fine, ma'am," I said. Mrs. Pritchard looked like to get right to the point. "Well, Eben, what can I do for you?" It was Mrs. Pritchard who taught me that Bible verse about asking and receiving, so I took a deep breath and I summoned up a chunk of courage. "Maybe you could help me find something, ma'am. You see, I made a bet with Pa." "I do not approve of gambling." Mrs. Pritchard's voice was firm. "Neither does the good book." The woman looked harmless, but one time she caught Albert Bowie making faces behind her back. During class, she yanked his ear hard until he cried uncle. Albert's acted like a genuine angel ever since, at least on Sunday mornings. "Not a gambling kind of bet," I explained. "I'm trying to find a wonder here in Sassafras Springs. A man-made wonder, something amazing and awe-inspiring." I stopped to draw a breath. "Like the pyramids, but it doesn't have to be that big." "What a funny idea," Mrs. Pritchard said. "I think you're on a fool's errand looking for wonders around here. Better you go home and study that Sunday school lesson. Book of Mark, chapter 4, verse 30. The parable of the mustard seed. Study that, Eben, instead of bothering folks for wonders." Clutching the pillowcases close to her chest, she walked toward her house. "See you on Sunday," I called her. Sal had already beat me to the road. I hated to think of that train in Colorado leaving the station without me, but I didn't hold out a lot of hope. My mind was so fixed on snow-covered mountains that Sal heard her calling before I did. "Come back! Eben McAllister! Come on back here!" Suddenly Mrs. Pritchard was racing down the road after me. "I just remembered something. I don't know how it slipped my mind." Mrs. Pritchard was a mite plump, so she was breathing hard by the time she caught up with me. "I don't have some fancy pyramid, but if you want to see the greatest wonder of this world or any other, well, you just follow me. Don't you dawdle now." She marched to her house like a soldier, and you can bet I followed her. I didn't want to get my ear pulled. "Not you," I told Sal when we got to the door. Sal's not one to get her feelings hurt. She lay down in the cool shade outside as I stepped through the doorway. Wouldn't Aunt Pretty be surprised to know I was being invited into the Pritchard house? Wouldn't she like to know every last detail? Mrs. Pritchard went straight to a tall cabinet, opened a drawer, and picked up something wrapped in tissue paper. "I haven't shown this to anyone in years, but you asked for a wonder, Eben, and you'll never see more of a wonder than this." And she carefully peeled back the paper. The shriveled up face staring back at me sent shivers up my spine. It reminded me of the shrunken heads I'd seen in my exploring book. Aunt Pretty told me that when she was growing up, the only dolls country girls had were made of rags, dried apples, or clothespins. Mrs. Pritchard's doll had yellow yarn hair, an old-fashioned dress, and 2 hollows carved out of the leathery apple for eyes. Why anybody, even a girl, would take a fancy to a doll was beyond me, but this doll was something special. This doll was as ugly as sin. Oh, we're going to learn why Miss Pritchard thinks that this ugly apple-headed doll is a 7 wonder of the world as we continue reading tomorrow. I think it's going to be the perfect story for Valentine's Day, for Halloween students. So make sure you return and come back tomorrow to catch that. And we'll talk to you later.